When the meeting starts, you don't even. Huh?
Start by 5.
Yes.
Good evening, everyone. Please, if you can hear me, kindly indicate so I'll know.
Hi, good afternoon, good evening.
Good evening. Can everyone hear me? Okay, thank you very much. Once again, good evening, everyone, and welcome to today's class. And I'll be your moderator for today's class. My name is Lillian FOB. Today's class is going to be an interesting one, looking at the challenges of young people in politics. As you come in, please kindly drop your name in the chat box as the culture, and we would give 5 minutes for more persons to join in. Then we'll kick off the session. Thank you. Okay, good evening, everyone. Once again, I would love to welcome everyone on behalf of the college to today's session on the challenges of young people in politics 717. And our facilitator for today is Miss Risola Abiola. Now, Miss Risola Abiola is a young politician, communication specialist, and government relations professional. She's an advocate for gender equity and youth inclusion in governance. And she works at the intersection of politics and civil society to promote enhanced representation for marginalized groups in decision-making structures. Ms. Abiola was Special Assistant on Media to the former Speaker of the House of Representatives, Honorable Yakubu Dogara. She also served on the Board of Trustees of the Governing All Progressive Congress from 2014 to 2018. And in 2019, she contested, albeit unsuccessfully, for a seat in the House of Representatives. Ms. Risola, who once served also on the advisory board of the World Youth Movement for Democracy, is a burgeoning eaglet, that is, one of the 25 young Nigerian women chosen by the United Nations Women, UN Women, to carry on advocacy regarding meeting goals outlined in the Beijing Platform for Action. She runs the Derisola Abiola Foundation, a nonprofit domiciled in Abeokuta, a hometown, and established with the aim of carrying out social development programs. So I introduce to everyone Ms. Risola Abiola. Ms. Risola Abiola, you have the floor, ma.
Yeah, I'm here. Thank you so much for the introduction. And hello, good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
So I'm going to make this as brief as possible, so we still have time to also take questions. I'm very happy to be here. Always very happy to share my experiences and lessons learned from being politically active. So we'll be going into the topic. Challenges of young people in politics. First slide, please. So I think before we start to talk about the challenges, even though I'm sure that many of us know exactly what politics is about, I think we still need more understanding of politics. So, like, what is politics? How do we understand politics? I would appreciate if perhaps you could also share your thoughts on how you understand politics outside of the definition, perhaps, that you've heard. But what does politics mean to you? You can also share your thoughts in the chat box so we make this interactive. So, a classic definition of politics is that it is about who gets what, when, and how. Okay, it covers the actions or activities concerned with achieving and using power in a country or society. It's an organized process of peacefully settling contestations on how resources are harnessed and deployed, as well as how society itself is structured, run, and maintained. One thing I always say, particularly to people who say, they have no interest in politics or that they're not concerned about politics, is that politics determines everything. And as this definition shows, everything from who gets what, when we're talking about projects, for instance, say maybe your governor wants to cite a particular project, there's a reason why we have a number of projects in locations that are not suitable. And it's simply because political interests were placed before everything else. So, politics is very key in that it actually decides how things are done, what is done, when it's done, how it's done, the key people who will play a key role in getting that thing done. So politics is very key. And I think this definition pretty much sums up everything. Yeah, politics refers to, Elder Jason says, politics refers to the way the society allocates power and resources. well, that falls under the scope of politics. Politics, simple talk about open process in which people get into power. Power is very central to politics, yes. Um, okay, so next slide, please. So now politics and representation. The definition given before underscores the importance of representation and inclusion to preserve the legitimacy of the process among all or the majority of the members of any given society, and to meet the goal of satisfactorily addressing social concerns in a peaceful and organized way. Then constituent groups must be adequately represented and afforded equal opportunities to aspire for power and advocate for issues important to them. Essentially, right, when it comes to representation, we know that every society is made up of different groups. You'll find men, you'll find women. Within, those two gender groups, you'll also find older people, younger people, people with disabilities. Breaking it down further, you'll find people grouped perhaps on the classification of what they do for a living. You'll find labor unions. You'll find, for instance, the Nigerian Union of Teachers. You'll talk about Pengasan. You'll talk about ASU. You'll talk about market women. So, in every society, we have different groups that make up that society. And when it comes to representation, politics is also very key in how the representation is set up. We look at the National Assembly, for instance. We have 360 people in the House of Representatives. We have just about 11 women in this current assembly. It just kind of shows that politics is a process through which our representatives emerge. And that's why it's also very key that we engage the process more meaningfully. Next slide, please. So who is a youth? I'm sure that most of us are Nigerians, and we're likely very familiar with the fact that to a lot of older people, once they say youth, they're not necessarily referring to somebody who is young. They just mean someone who is younger than them. So, for instance, a 90-year-old might tell you that a 60-year-old is a youth, and you, the 30-year-old, you'll be wondering what is going on here. So that's actually very commonplace in this part of the world. But according to the Commonwealth, youths are actually, people aged between 15 and 29. But in Nigeria, the 18 to 35 age bracket is the one that is widely accepted. That's the bracket that we use in this part of the world. However, within politics, like I said earlier, youth generally just means somebody who is relatively young, not necessarily somebody who is below 35. Because within political circles, you'll still be told that 40-year-olds, for instance, should still qualify as youth. And it's because we have a problem with succession in our political circles. So it's very common to find perhaps somebody who was House of Rep member 16 years ago, still trying to run for reps again, or this time around trying to become a deputy governor, or this time around trying, coming as a commissioner or something. It's still the same people who are not vacating those spaces. So young people in political systems have a serious challenge with succession. So when they reach the age limit, that youth age limit, there's usually nowhere for them to go. And once they step out of the youth bracket, they no longer have a position within which they can push for inclusion. So that's why you find so many people who have gone beyond the youth bracket still pushing as youths, still saying that they're youths because they need the platform to be able to secure representation. And that's one of the reasons why within political circles, it is actually very hard to enforce that age limit. Next slide, please. So Nigeria's youthful population accounts for about 70%. In some, depending on what stats you're pulling up, some will say about 67%, but we know that it's not less than 65 based on all the different figures that are quoted. So the country's median age is 18, the age upon which citizens qualify to exercise their franchise. Next slide, please. So looking now at the position of young people in politics, despite the fact that young people account for an overwhelming majority of Nigeria's population, we're not well represented in the country's politics. It's a situation that leaves us with less than desired sway over the country's leadership direction and a cause of frustration for many. Only recently did we score a major win with the landmark legislation that lowered the age of running for elective office in the country. And that's talking about the Not Too Young to Run bill. And prior to that, young people were forced to watch from the sidelines as decisions were made on their behalf with no legal pathway to aspire to and claim power ourselves. So like I'll make an example with a couple of efforts that we've had within the APC, which I belong to. We set up this youth lobby committee sometime last year following our national progressive youth conference. And, the whole aim of it was to ensure that young people are better represented in appointed positions and that young people are also better represented in the party's leadership structures and that more young people emerge as candidates. So, we're actually really working really hard, but at the end of the day, we held our convention. I also ran for a position within the National Working Committee. But a lot of young people ended up not emerging because the zoning formula did not favor them. So, we'll still come to that later on during this presentation. And, as has been rightly noted in this slide, it's actually a cause of frustration for many. But the thing with our politics, really, as with anything else, as any career field, is that, so Yoruba people will say that it's not the day you give birth to a child that the child will walk. So we just have to learn to persevere, to not give up, to keep pushing, to keep striving. And a lot of us are committed to, playing the long game, being in it for the long haul. But for a lot of other people, the frustration creeps in and many just decide, you know what, maybe I'll leave politics for now and come back later. Then talking about the Not Too Young to Run again, after quite the battle, we succeeded in getting the age of eligibility for elective office lowered. So now from 25 years old, you can aspire to, say, the House of Assembly or the House of Reps. And the challenge, however, is that while we may no longer be too young to run, a lot of us are still too broke to run. So there's a funding issue also to think about. As I said earlier, we'll still come back to that. Next slide, please. So we're talking about the challenges now. So challenges hindering adequate youth representation and dominance in politics range from economic to cultural. So, for instance, they include financial disempowerment, talking about not being too broke to run. Politics is very expensive. I've run for a mainstream elected position. I ran for House of Reps, and I've run for a party position. I ran for youth leader at the recently concluded party convention, and I can assure you that both times I spent a lot of money. So that's a serious challenge for quite a number of young people. Then cost-intensive political process. Again, it ties into finance, and a lot of young people are not able to come up with the funding required. Poor internal democracy in the case of organized political parties. So let's talk about zoning, for instance, and this is something that has worked against me, but it's not something I would throw out. Although it's an argument that can go both ways. So the thinking, the argument behind zoning is that, take party offices for instance, with the recently concluded convention. So we have a number of positions in the party's national leadership. And to ensure that these positions go around everybody and that all the states are adequately represented, all the regions, all the states are adequately represented in the party's leadership, our leaders sit and they zone this position. So now that we expect a presidential candidate from southern Nigeria, I think what they decided to do was just move the previous positions in the north, like the really prominent ones, and move them to the south just for equity. It's an equitable thing. It's the same way people would say, oh, we've had a president from the north. This time around, we want somebody from the south. That argument is hinged on equity. So it's the same way equity is the underpinning argument for zoning, say, within political parties. Now, we'll take it a step further from zoning, and then after we bought our forms, there was micro zoning. Micro zoning is now what happens when, say, you put 5 positions in a region, then the governors now sit down and say, okay, so this position will go to this state, and that position will go to that state, and this other position will go to this other state. So when that is done, it affects aspirants for certain positions who are not from the states where those positions have been micro-zoned to, which was what happened in my case. So the position was microzone to Lagos, but I was running from Ogun. So that's what happened in my case. So you will find that if you watched our convention, a number of people came up on the stage and they were crying, they were complaining. Many were talking about how hard they'd worked for the party, why should they step down? But at the end of the day, the argument also from the side of those who did the zoning and micro zoning is that if you don't do this thing this way, we might end up having multiple people occupying from one place or from one stage, occupying key positions at the expense of other people from other places. So it's an argument that goes both ways. I thought to explain that because I know that a lot of young people have reached out to me really to complain about it, and a lot of others have had so many things to say. But it's also important sometimes that we see things from another perspective so that we have a full understanding of how we engage the system if and when we want to vie for things within it. And then ageism and other cultural bias. If you're from I don't want to smoke my people, but if you're from certain parts of the country, you know that unless you're a bit gray, they don't really think you're competent. And it's almost as if young people are expected to stay in a particular corner. And if you want to start coming out of that, it might be considered as, overreaching, sort of. So it's very key also to be conscious of the societal factors where you're from. If there's a bias against young people, then you have to be very, very deliberate about addressing that in your political engagement. So maybe if they think, oh, this person is too young, then maybe don't tell people your age unless you absolutely have to. Or maybe if they say, oh, they expect people to look a certain way, then try to dress the part. Don't show up at political meetings with your afro in a particular shape or with your hair looking somehow, or if you're a guy, you have cornrows, you have piercings. There are these societal things that are associated with youthfulness, and they think it's a lack of maturity. They think you're just not prepared or that you're not ready. So know the environment you're operating in and just look the part as much as possible. When you leave the meeting, when you leave the grassroots, when you leave your leaders, you can go and do whatever you want. But for as long as you're engaging within that kind of system, it's very important that while we're trying to work on that mindset, we also try to look the part so they don't strike us off simply by virtue of our age or how we present ourselves. And then again, widespread disaffection and non-participation in politics. That's a major challenge with young people in the sense that it's not unusual to find that if a prominent young person says, oh, I'm joining APC or I'm joining PDP, other young people start attacking them, almost like they've done something wrong. And it's a very sad situation because there are really no I say this, I'm not trying to talk down at any political platform, but to really do well in Nigerian politics, you have to belong to one of the major ones. And you have a chance of excelling in the smaller ones, but it's going to cost you a lot more. It's going to take a lot more effort. But the two major parties are a more veritable platform for political participation, especially if you're running for office or even if you're hoping to get appointments. So a lot of young people also need to be more supportive of other young people. They need to understand that, in the words of Banky, you engage Nigeria the way it is, not the way you hope that it will be. And if you're trying to change a system, unless you want to spend decades, working on people's psyche, investing a lot of money and all of that, then it might just be better to join one of the more viable ones, join in large numbers, try to change things from within. It's not been easy, but I don't think it's impossible. So next slide, please. So on addressing the challenges, access to funding and economic empowerment. So I'm going to say something here. No matter how economically empowered you are, politics is not something you want to fund by yourself. And even the OGs, the older politicians, the big boys, the big girls, they have people who support them. Businessmen chipping, during campaigns. We all know who these people are in different regions. If you're from the Southeast, I'm sure you know who your political support systems are. So we all know who these people are who support politicians. There aren't many politicians who have enough money to run their campaigns single-handedly based on their own finances alone. So yes, economic empowerment is very key. Try to increase your earning power because you'll find a lot of people the moment you indicate interest in active politics, your bill will go up. Like there's no way to avoid it. A lot of people will approach you for the most unbelievable things. Oh, my mother passed away yesterday. We need to pay the ambulance. Oh, I'm building a house. I need to buy tiles. And the funny thing is, you probably don't even own a house of your own yet, but they will approach you for these things, and you're expected to help them. So yeah, so it's very key. So even if you have people funding you, it is easier for people to fund you when you also have, a level of capacity. You've displayed, you've shown that you have some capacity to also get things done, so they don't feel like they're funding you entirely. So access to funding, again, we also need to look at crowdfunding. As I said earlier, young people would do well. There's a lot of outrage against the system and all of that, but I think a lot of young Nigerians would actually do well to support those young politicians that they believe have what it takes to deliver. And I think it's very important that we also set realistic goals for ourselves. Yes, we don't like how the system is, but it's very key also that as young politicians, especially if you plan to run for office someday, don't overpromise, because it's easy to point to all the things you want to fix before you're elected. And then you're elected and you realize the job of fixing it isn't going to be that easy. So it's also very key that we learn to manage expectations right from this moment. So access to funding, crowdfunding, reaching out, fundraising, economic empowerment, also increase your own earning capacity so you're able to do more for yourself politically. Campaign finance regulations, the recent amendments to the Electoral Act covered campaign financing. For instance, the limit for House of Reps, I believe, is now 70 million or thereabouts, which I think is a lot more realistic than 20 million, where it was before. But, talking about campaign finance regulations, it's very unusual to actually find a politician sticking to the laws governing campaign financing. So until we actually take it a lot more seriously, you'll find that others will continue to have an edge over others because they're spending way beyond the limits. Promotion of internal party democracy. You see, unfortunately, people have different I think a bit of our culture actually influences our politics, in that decision making and all of that is not is often not the most democratic way that things could possibly be done. But again, understand the system you're working with and then figure out how to play that system. I think that that's a much more pragmatic approach to take. And it's also important that we understand certain things with a system where, for instance, consensus is what the leaders tend to favor. Then it's important that as young people who want to play within that system, you cross your T's, you dot your I's, you do all the work that you're supposed to, you do everything that you're supposed to, support the party, be there when you're needed, promote your governor, promote your candidates, do everything, just be on ground, build a following at the grassroots, do everything that you possibly can. Then in the event that it doesn't favor you, there are ways that they compensate sometimes. So say you're not able to get a ticket, you might get an appointment. And sometimes that will also put you in a position where you're able to change things, where you're able to influence policies. So this is just me saying, keep an open mind, be flexible, and be willing to take advice. I've done no, man, this is unbearable, this is unacceptable, I'm leaving. I've done it. And then I've come back, and I can tell you that I think it's always better, yeah. Just listen and take advice. It's hurt, it's very painful. But our politics is not perfect. And to go the long haul, to excel at it, you have to figure out that system, learn that system, and then learn how to game it. And sometimes you might want to run for office. You should also know that comes with a lot of say, for instance, you become a state House of Assembly member or a House of Reps member. Compared with having an appointment, you might actually be able to do more and then keep a lower profile with an appointment, as opposed to being an elected official where like 70% of your earnings will go to sorting out people's problems. So it's always important to have a plan B So if you're aiming for one thing, aim for the stars, you might land on the moon. If you're aiming for one thing, have other things in mind that you can also fall back on in case that one thing doesn't work out. Facilitating political interest and participation among young people. Yeah, we do have a challenge with young people. And I think a lot of us are not very pragmatic when it comes to engaging the system, or when it comes to our expectations of politics, or when it comes to what we expect when we participate in the political process. So it's also very key. I try as much as possible to be honest when sharing, experiences with other young people who want to join the political system. Because I remember how I came in, very idealistic, very impatient, wanting to get things done right now, not willing to compromise. But one thing I've also learned from reading about, great politicians across democracies, different countries, is that it gets to a point, a bit of compromise is key. And when I say compromise, I don't mean compromise on your values or on your principles. I mean compromise regarding if you want A, and you can't get A, but you have B or there's C, then you should figure out how to work with it. Because at the end of the day, the general advice I would give is always remember why you joined politics. Okay, and I'm believing that for a lot of us, it's we're not happy with the way things are. We want to change the system, and that's why we're joining. And whatever it is, whatever opportunities come, whatever position you find yourself, that principle should be what guides your decisions. It should be what guides your activities. It should be what determines how you approach things and what you do. So also, it's very key that we also engage other young people. There's a lot of apathy among young people, among Nigerians generally, but it's even more pronounced among young people. And I think a lot of it also has to do with naivety, with not really understanding the system or how it works, and then just thinking, oh, if we say this, then it has to be that way. But politics is not a tea party anywhere in the world, and it takes a bit of patience to be able to actually have our way, and we must be willing to be in it for the long haul and manage expectations. And as much as possible, if we can also help other young people come to this realization, then it will be very important. I saw a comment earlier about Banki's declaration speech and how wonderful it was, and the fact that I think it was a lady, she may not have understood his decision until being exposed to this program. So it's that perspective that it helps to change, and I think that's something we should also try to do for other young people who are perhaps still apathetic towards politics in Nigeria. Then cultural reforms and elimination of bias against young people. I touched on this briefly before. Cultural reforms also really work against women. There are places where no matter how qualified a woman might be, they would vote for your rabbit before they vote for you, because you're a woman, simply because you're a woman. So again, it also happens with young people. And then sometimes another challenge young people have, it's not that they don't see the capacity, or that they don't believe that you're resourceful. It's the fact that they just feel like, why are you in a hurry? It's like you're 35, you want to go to the States. Why? I mean, you still have your whole life ahead of you. And then they will show you somebody who is 65 years old. And like, but that Baba is 65. He has been fighting for this ticket since 1999. He has to go before you. You have to be patient. So nobody really understands why, you have a sense of urgency. You don't like the way things are going. You feel like this things need to be changed right away. But then they look at you and they're like, when you like, so like they want you to be patient, and they're wondering what's wrong with you. There are so many people on the queue before you. You should calm down. If you get essay to the essay, you should be happy. It's something, you can do something there. so you just have to be really patient, and you have to do your politics really well. Understand what the issues are, where you're from, identify the key people. Again, practical advice now, if you're from a constituency where maybe they have factions, or who the key power brokers are, who decide things, try and work your way up to them, show that you're responsible. Our leaders have a thing for, that person is responsible responsibility is not necessarily a function of this person is a good person, but the party needs you and you're there, or you see a need and you feel it, or you see, oh, there's something wrong and you fix it. You do enough of that, and they may not really focus on your age anymore. The talk might then be, oh, this person has not even been empowered yet, but then look at what he's doing and look at what she's doing. So try to also make yourself available. And no matter how things go, like now, I was pretty much told to step down on Saturday at the convention. I had to step down because, well, the position I was going for was microzone to another state. And I'm in Abeokuta at the moment. I came in to attend a senatorial meeting on Thursday in my district. So that happened just barely 4 days before. And I was there greeting everybody, just showing that I wasn't upset. I'm okay with the position of the party. Party is supreme. Here to serve. The Ramadan comes around. We're in Ramadan already. It was the end of Ramadan. The expectations, towards the party and all of that. So it's just as much as possible, try to not be a sore loser. You can register your displeasure with certain things, but continue being a party man or a party woman. So work on your relationships with the key people within the party structure, the key decision makers. And then, even when you're working on, for example, so this thing about key people within party structures, just work on relationships with people generally. For instance, my local government chairman, when I met her, I had no idea she would become local government chairman, but I cultivated a relationship because, well, she was a former local government chairman in my place. So it was about a year later, or even a year plus, that she eventually emerged as our local government chairman within the party. And because of the prior relationship I'd had, it's much easier for me now because, she heads the party in my local government. So as much as possible, build relationships, maintain relationships, be respectful. Our people are very big on respect. Be there for the party. Just try and, as much as possible, to be a true party man, party woman. Understand the dynamics where you're from. It is key that we change things. It's very important that we want to change things, but at the same time, we should also try and be patient with certain things sometimes. So it doesn't seem like you're trying to do too much or you're trying to go against so many people. There will be divisions, but how we manage them is key. So just, figure out all the key people, know how to, strike a balance within everybody. Some constituencies are really tough. They have factions and other such things. But as a young person going in, I would say don't align so strongly with one person that you offend someone else. Politics is very dynamic. One group could be at the top today, another group could be under tomorrow. So, as much as possible, just, establish relationships, be a decent person, be there for the party. If you have to choose the side, pick a side, let people know where you are, but you don't necessarily have to be insulting everybody else to prove your loyalty and other such things. So just know what you're doing, right? Know what you're doing, have a goal. Okay. Have a goal and work towards it. If, for instance, by 2031, you want to be in the House of Representatives, break it down. This is 2022. We're going into the 2023 cycle. What can you do, within those 9 years that will get you to the House of Reps, and then begin to work on it? So, is it you want to start up what you want to be known for in the constituency? Is it that, you want to be the one who solves problems? You want to be the one who helps people get jobs? You want to be the one who helps women? You want to be the one who helps, unemployed graduates where you're from? You want to be the one who helps others with skill acquisition? You want to be the one who teaches others, to pick up useful skill sets? Figure out something that you want to be known for, and then make key relationships and then work towards that goal. So it's every month, every year, every day, you're doing something that takes you closer to your goal. That's very key. So how to be a party man? How do you become a party man? So I just made an example here. I ran for something. I didn't get it. I had to step down, but I'm here. I'm at home, still with the party. So basically, it's just for you to show that, I'm not happy at how things turned out, but I'm not going to start throwing tantrums because of that. Or, I wish things, maybe I'd been informed earlier that this was going to this place, but it doesn't matter. It's done. It's done. And it's left to me to carry on, building from where I stopped. So to be a party man, it's not easy. It's not always easy, especially where ambition is concerned. But, to be a party man, you just have to be loyal. And you have to be devoted to the party, essentially. And, do all you can to support the party, to promote the party, to show people that you're there for the party and that you always be there for the party. If you have issues with the party, for instance, wisdom is profitable to direct. There should be a way through which you can voice your concerns, or speak up about the issues that you have and other such things. But as much as possible, we have to be tactful in how we engage the systems and how we register our displeasure. For instance, if you come on social media, unless maybe there's something else that you're paying for, but if you have access to key people within the party and you've spoken to them and you've told them, I don't like how this was done, then I don't think it's necessary to then come on social media again and then say, oh, they've done this, they've done that. Just be tactful and know how to sort your issues out away from the public glare, unless doing it in public is somehow tied to your goals, and then you would be in the best position to determine that.
Thank you so much, man. You've said a lot of things. And I think one thing I would take out is the fact that you highlighted on young people not promising more than what they can do. Because I guess that's what the current leaders did, and we're holding them accountable and they cannot deliver. So we're not promising. Eventually we'll get there. You're like from patience, value, commitment, which I can see in the chat. A lot of things you said which are very useful, but that's part of not over promising. So you don't, when you get there and you can't deliver, they begin to hold you to accountable. So I would love us to take some questions. I can see hands are up everywhere. Mr. Tuluwani Divine, you have the floor.
Okay, thank you, Madam Rinsola, and I would really want to say a big thank you. Apart from the fact that I'm actually I'm one of those they call the ABC apologists, and I'm actually here to learn more. That's why I'm here. Anyways, I want to say a big thank you to also the Electoral College and the ED, and of course our current moderator for today. Thank you so much for the work and the effort put together. Now, there is one particular question I just want to ask. I felt there would have been a better way to handle situations that the youth would have thought of to actually handle their situation rather than the way they did it. So this is in respect with the NSAS. Do you think there should have been, or there could have been a better way to engage the government to get a better response and a potential positive response that would actually, be good for the youth? And of course, because it was more like a youth opera and all that, do you think there could have been a better way to do it? Or you would want to actually, say, oh, the way they did it was actually better? Just a bit of something that actually just keep, disturbing me. I just wanted to ask, since you're already proactive in politics, and of course, you're a well-placed youth personality. Thank you.
Okay, so on NSARS particularly, I don't know. I try to refrain from commenting on NSARS, but I think communication channel was opened. I recall, the 5 for 5 being communicated, and of course, there's always room to learn from how things turned out. I just feel like at the end of the day, because of how wide the level of involvement was, and the fact that it wasn't exactly led by any particular individuals or groups, it wasn't easy to contain at a point. And that's always the case with uprisings of that nature, I guess. But I actually really do wish that things had turned out differently. And a couple of the demands I believe are being worked on. I know of the police reforms, the police welfare. I think it was one of the points listed in the 5 for 5. Although, the challenge of police brutality is one that we're actually still dealing with. And I really do wish that we had more accountability on that front. A lot of young people have fallen victim to the high-handedness of security officials, and it still persists. And I really, really wish that that's something we can do something about.
Sorry, can I just chip in another quickly? Is there a way you can actually be contacted when it comes to the police brutality thing? I mean, for instance, you could actually, you're a youth driver, and I'm sure that you could actually be reached out to, just like Sega was, so that you could actually, help sort out this kind of situation when it happens, because we still have police brutality anyways. We still have the high-handedness everywhere and stuff like that. I mean, imagine there's an app that just came out from the police and a whole lot of people have already bombarded the app, even sending fake alerts and stuff like that. I mean, can you make yourself available for such an operation where people can actually reach you for maybe through Twitter or something, or through some particular means where they can actually address their concerns?
So there are a number of organizations working on that already, and it's not a branch of advocacy that I would want to insert myself into, considering there are already organizations working within that space. Also, I'm aware the police has a CRU unit or something like that where such complaints can be laid. But I personally, it's not a branch of advocacy that I would want to insert myself into at all.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Electoral College and the moderator. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Ma. Mr. Damilare Sanusi, you have the floor. Okay, Mr. Joseph Udo, please ask your question. Okay. Yeah, so I'm trying to maxing you to unmute now.
Okay, good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, please.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Ms. Risola. Thank you very much for such a good and amazing presentation. I've really learned quite a whole lot. I hope you can hear me clearly.
I can.
Okay, Ma, you talked about the issue of apathy among the youths, which is a problem that is, I guess it's almost, it is a problem that has been noticed all over Nigeria among the youth. Now, from my own perspective, I have a question, but the question will come when I just do a little contribution. Now, what I've noticed is I'm a youth here in Akwa Ibom State. I'm 32, and I'm hoping to also be actively involved in politics, though I just registered newly in the political party. I just registered newly in the PDP. But now I've been able to, I do talk to youths, I do talk to my age grades, my age mates. I talk to them. What really causes apathy among youths? It's this issue of as in politicians that have been there sitting tight to power, and even when they keep on going on and on, they really don't really have anything to offer. But most of them keep on persisting because they have amassed wealth, they have accumulated wealth through several means, some through legally, some illegally. And it looks as if they have decided to block the system against the youth. So some of the youths are just tired because they are not economically empowered to compete with these other senior politicians, as in the elder statesmen or the senior citizens, I should call them. They are not economically empowered to compete with them. Some of them don't even have a job, or they don't have something to do, even when they are educated, even when they have skills. So it's all these issues, it is interchained, it's interlinked. So when you talk to a younger person, oh, why don't you always get yourself involved? Engage with, oh, this is your representative. Ask question on what the person, They will just tell you, I beg, leave me, I don't tire for these people. Now they are the job, waiting in the provide, give me. That is, so you discover that apathy has eaten so deep that the youth are just tired of engaging anymore in the system. So when it happens like this, with the issue of the older citizens or the senior citizens sitting tied to power, not wanting to relinquish power in any way, and any youth that will come up to give a contribution or say, okay, this is what is supposed to have been done, they will just use their economic and financial power and shut a youth down. What's your own advice? What's your own take? What do we do in this situation? Especially here in my state, it is very, very much prevalent in my state, Akwa Ibom State.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
So the challenge I have in Akwa Ibom with funding as it relates to youth participation is a universal one. All the young people everywhere are complaining about it. And I mentioned the issue of funding earlier also, and we actually need to cultivate a culture of crowdfunding in our politics. You'll find that abroad, in the US, for instance, people are not expected to fund their political campaigns by themselves. It's not a normal situation that people will expect that you should be the one spending money for your political campaign. Political campaigns are supposed to be funded through donations. So sometimes corporations donate, sometimes individuals donate, but like people are supposed to donate to fund the campaigns of people that they care about. So I think until we actually do a lot of work regarding orientation with the average Nigerian, if people don't understand that, look, if you're not supporting candidates, then you can't have anything different from what you already have. And if you're not satisfied with the quality of candidates coming forward, it's because the guys who can actually do the job the way that you would like, they can't afford to run. So until you're also willing to put your money where your mouth is, it's going to be the same old thing, same of the old guard that you're complaining about, because they're the ones who have the money to go the full mile. And for, those that can even manage to maybe scrap a few millions together and stuff, it's still nothing compared with what these guys will bring out. It's this mighty war chest that a lot of young people are going up against, and that's why you find a lot of young people who are qualified, but they can't come out to vie for office because they don't have the means to do it. So at the end of the day, I think it's still an appeal that needs to be made to the Nigerian people. You want to see something different, then you must be willing to support something different. So I think unless we actually make our people understand that, there really isn't much that we can do.
Thank you.
Okay, ma. Thank you. Sorry, moderator. I don't know. Can I still chip in something? Okay, ma. And it also boils down to the issue in political parties. When we're taught political parties and structures and how they are operating, normally a political party is supposed to have I should call it a sort of contributory scheme where members at all levels contribute to maybe to fund the political party. But we've discovered that the big wings, the big powers, and they have decided to kind of suppress that particular policy that, when you contribute to the system, like financially, you have a say. But when a governor comes in and said, if it's not me, this party wouldn't have survived. They have decided to kill the issue of young people coming to contribute a little, even if it's monthly dues or quarterly dues or yearly dues or whatever. But that issue is not being, should I say, it's not being upheld. So at the end of the day, we have one big elephant, sponsoring the entire program of the parties, so that when he comes up tomorrow and he says it wants, so I guess that is that is one of the challenges too. Thank you very much, man.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much, Ma. And just to add to that, I actually came across a young person who wants to vie for an office, I think House of Assembly in Akwa Ibom, Cross River State or Akwa Ibom State, and he's actually using crypto to fundraise for his campaign, which is like a step forward and a good one too. So Damilare Sanusi, I don't know if you can speak now.
Hi, good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Good evening, the seventh cohort. Good evening, Ms. Risola. Wonderful. Matter of fact, from the PowerPoint presentation, I already had a question. Two questions. First off, how can we mitigate against this bias against young people? I understand you said we should work on how we engage with the young people, dress and all of that. But even in regular life, you find out that when you're working with older people, there's just this ageism. And I love that you spelled out ageism in your PowerPoint presentation. There's just that ageism, that belief that because you are younger, you can't get work done. So even in regular, discussions, how can we try to eliminate? Then political parties, can we have youth political party? Is it a must we join the two regular parties, PDP and APC? They have structures on ground that, have really established themselves for a long period of time that will be difficult to maybe dismantle, compete against. But have a young party where young people join, where we can even have cohorts like this that we continue to educate people and then people join and we can fund and really have internal party democracy and all of the things that parties really should do. So, party, and then thank you so much.
Okay, so I'll start with the second question. Can we have a youth party? I wouldn't advise that we have a youth party, but then APC, PDP, they're not the only options. And in the last election cycle, APC and PDP took most of the electoral positions, but some other parties still got seats. ADP, SDP, ADC. So APGA. It's not just APC, PDP, but it is the chances of success are higher with those political parties, and then the smaller parties that actually are also able to win elections, say APGA in the southeast. It also again depends on where you're from and where you're running. All politics is local, so there might be local factors that might also aid other parties in the places that you're from. And then again, if you intend to run on one of the not as established parties, it's just one, it will cost you a lot more money because you'll more or less be funding that structure entirely yourself. You'll be building that structure yourself. It's going to cost you a lot more money. If you need to put in any effort that you'd have to put in say APC or PDP, you have to double or triple it to be able to attain success in a less established platform. So those are all the things that you just have to keep in mind. It's not impossible, of course, but it's just a lot more difficult. And then the chances of success are even slimmer after all the work that you've done. Then I will tell you, however, though, that even in the less established parties, internal democracy is still a challenge. And I believe a lot of people who have had experience within those platforms will tell you that. So the fact that you're not in APC or PDP actually does not give any guarantee that you will hold primaries where you're going, or that if the primaries hold, you will actually get the actual results. Politicians are kind of the same everywhere. Sorry, but sorry, but it is very likely that you'll find the same challenges with the bigger parties and the smaller ones, just in a smaller way, but those challenges still exist. And if young people were to come together to form a platform, of course, it's not impossible. It's just the nature of our politics. It might be a bit tough to make a headway, but hey, whatever it is we put our mind to, I'm sure we can succeed at it. I know there was a youth party in 2019 that fielded a couple of candidates, and none of them won. I think it's been deregistered. So if we're going to put a party together, I wouldn't say it should be done on the basis of age. Do you understand? So, but then smaller, newer platforms emerge all the time. Quite so just launched one in Kano. And then another thing I realized is that the smaller platforms that are even more likely to succeed are those ones that are offshoots of one of the major ones, or those ones that have been populated by people leaving one of the major ones. So in a way, you find that they're still very tied to one of those legacy parties, either APC or PDP. Then I think the first question was about what again? Can you remind me, please?
So talked about ageism.
Okay, ageism. Okay, so one thing, honestly, for me, yeah, one thing I've always just done is focused on showing my capacity. So at home, I do a couple of things through my foundation. We've empowered a number of people. We recently paid WIAC fees. We have a couple of other things in the works. When people see you doing stuff like that, nobody really remembers your age. I think maybe unless, although politicians are funny people, maybe one position will come around and they'll be like, "How am I actually carrying out?" So you never really know. But the only thing I would advise you is be very mindful of the cultural nuances, and just do your best to look the part. Make the needed investments. Don't do things based on, oh, I'm young, let me just do something small. Do whatever it is that you think you can do, that you're capable of. So do whatever it is, within your capabilities. Also focus on showing your skills. If, for instance, you're from, for instance, Lagos, and maybe you have media training or something, or say you write articles normally, try to also add value by maybe promoting the things that your governor does, or something that one of the commissioners does, or just try to also add some kind of value, minus you just being a member of a party. So like by the time you show capacity in different ways, when there are opportunities, people are more likely to remember you and to call upon you, and your age might not really be the issue then. But then as much as possible, if you know you're very young, see, just treat your age like a need to know thing. If anybody asks you, oh, how old are you? If maybe you just turned 30, tell them early 30s. They can think it's 34, they can think it's 35. So, as much as possible, if you know it's an issue, just don't emphasize it. So it's not something you mention absolutely unless you're asked. So just don't emphasize it. Just do the same thing that everybody else is doing. Play your politics like you're one, elderly person. And then if you do it well, it will get to the point where when they talk about your age, it's going to be like, for somebody doing so much and is actually so young. It's not going to be from the point of, this person is too young, I beg, we shouldn't be listening to him. So I think that's what you should be trying to angle for.
Thank you so much for that. Mr. Adewale Adeniro, you can ask your question. Okay, I'll move over.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, thank you very much. My question is not far-fetched. I just want to ask, as a young adult, you are trying to make wave in the political party you have. Is it necessary for you to have a leader, someone you are looking up to, someone that is acting like your backbone, someone that is sponsoring you, someone that will tell you things and you will do, someone that will just take you as like a political son? If that is so, and if that is necessary, won't you be like a puppet to that person once you eventually get into the office you're aspiring for? Thank you.
Okay, so let me just go straight to the point. This is a question about godfatherism, and I'll tell you something. Yeah. So godfatherism is like mentorship on steroids, and in any career field, you need a mentor. You need people who can enter rooms that you cannot, who can speak up for you when you're not there. So it's important that as much as possible, look, no man is an islander. And there are places that if you're just joining the party, for instance, and one of your leaders where you're from, takes to you, maybe you join his own part of the party and he's there like a father figure or a mother figure, and they're talking to other leaders and they're mentioning you and they're promoting you. It will help you. There are rooms you cannot enter that they can get into. There are opportunities you cannot secure on your own that they can secure for you. Now, the nature of your relationship with this person is what will determine the terms of our relationship. So I cannot say categorically that you have to run from people. It's not wise to run from people who can assist you because you're worried of what the terms might be later on. But it's as you're going, as you're progressing in that relationship, if they give the kind of vibe that maybe you'll be required to do things that you're not comfortable with, it is then up to you to try and readjust or redefine the terms of that relationship. But definitely we all need somebody who can speak up for us in moments when we're not able to speak up for ourselves, or who can promote us, or who can, get our names into conversations that we cannot insert ourselves into.
Absolutely, you're right, Ma. So thank you very much for that response. Falodu Oluwatosin, please ask your question.
Okay, good evening. Sorry. Good evening. Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
I just want to start so much from the class. I just want to ask this question. So actually, what the first one I want to ask has been asked, but I'll see go ahead and ask it. The second question is going to be the second question. There was a time I found a link that talks about mentorship. Yes, I think it was for APC. That is to mentor people online and for young people. I don't really know much about it. I don't need to speak on. I just want to ask if there is any platform like that one can get a direct mentorship. Probably, I don't know how it is done because it wasn't going at a point. I don't know if I can even speak.
Okay. Is there a platform where you can be mentored online? Is that the question?
So I actually didn't get her clearly, but she talked about something relating to mentorship.
Yeah.
Tosi, please, can you repeat your question and please make it brief? Thank you.
Or maybe use the chat box if the network isn't so clear.
Okay, yeah. So whilst Tosi is doing that, we'll move on to Dukas, please. Please ask your question. Thank you.
Okay, good evening. Good evening, Ms. Rinsola. It
Good
was a great
evening.
session. It's
Thank
such an
you.
honor to be in this class and then to learn from your experiences. Okay, my question is, during your presentation, you made mention of zoning, something that affected you. And then you said where governors will have to sit, look into it and know which position goes to which state and all. Is it that this zoning thing, their consensus and decision, is it made before the convention? Are the people like, is there no a way that the people can be informed, like so they don't end up stressing themselves and then at the end of the day it doesn't go to their probably their zone, or I don't know.
Okay, so say for general elections now, the party, for instance, the understanding is that the president is coming from the south. So far, we've only had presidential hopefuls from southern Nigeria who are being talked about. So for some offices, people already know where it's expected, that the next person will come from. Say for House of Reps, there are constituencies where maybe it's 3 local governments or 2 local governments, and we know that they rotate it. So if one side does it, it's likely to go somewhere else. So, in those kinds of situations, people already know where the next candidate is supposed to emerge from. Now, for party offices, the thing with political parties is that in any organization, any institution where you find a large number of people, there will be multiple interests, that need to be taken care of. So I think what happened in the case of, our recently held convention was that we were able to agree on a zoning formula to regions before forms were purchased, but like more haggling and more horse trading and more negotiations had to be done, up until just days or even hours before the convention, because, there was still a heated argument over a number of positions just the night before, from what, we understand. So it's the nature of politics that interests have to be taken into account and interests have to be duly compensated for. So that's why sometimes it's tough. It's very tough for those of us on the receiving end, people whose ambitions have to be cut short because, well, the zoning formula didn't favor them. But it's like when is this what do they call it, caveat emptor or something? If you're doing something that you understand that there's a degree of risk involved in it. So for those of us who went ahead to buy forms, because the understanding was that forms would close by a certain time, and I think at the end of the day, again, it's not a strange thing to those of us within the system, because we know how party positions work. It's just the fact that we didn't know where what was going up until pretty much the final moments. We didn't know for certain where what was going. But delay is not denial. And politics is about seeking opportunities. I ran for youth leader because I believed, and I still believe, that I'm eminently qualified for that. Later on, there might be something else that I might think, I'm a good fit for. And if I decide to run, I could as well do that. I'll still be within my rights to. But at the end of the day, yeah, it's all a learning process. And another thing that I would want everyone to take note of is this, yeah. In politics, if you vie for something and you don't get it, it's not necessarily a loss in the absolute sense of the word. And that's one thing that I think a lot of young people need to understand. Just by virtue of you coming out to say, I want to do this, especially for someone like me who, look, I'm female, I'm female. I ran for a position that is traditionally reserved for men. I was very loud about my campaign. It was all over the place. If if it wasn't the zoning thing, if we'd gone to the polls, I don't think I would have had a problem with delegates. But well, it's the system that we've adopted, and we just have to work within it. So I just feel like hopefully next time, in another 4 years, if another lady comes forward and says, I want to be national youth leader, we've dented that ceiling, even if we're not breaking it. And before me, in the Young Women Forum, we had someone else who ran for deputy national youth leader at the 2018 convention. I ran for youth leader this time. And I'm hopeful that by the time someone else comes out to run for youth leader again, who is female, who is qualified, who understands what it takes, I believe by then perhaps it might be easier for her to succeed. So sometimes we have to look at the things we do, or the things we vie for within the political framework, not just from a perspective of did I succeed or not. We also have to look at the impact and the fact that it might perhaps make it easier for other people to come along. So for those of us who are young women in politics, our crusade is slightly different from the crusade of young people generally, because as young people and then also as women, it's like double jeopardy. We belong to two groups that are marginalized, that are underrepresented, that want to be waved aside, by most other people. So like for someone like me, just coming out to vie for that position, I think was something meaningful and something impactful. So even if I didn't get it, I believe I've done something, and it might be easier for the next lady who comes after me to vie for that position to clinch it. So it's if I think about how much I spent, what I spent, it's enough money to actually run for state assembly and win. But it's politics. It's, as I said, there's a level of risk involved, and if you've been in the system for long enough, it's just it's another day at the office. It's how you could work in a bank and you have to be conscious of security. For those of us in politics, if you run for office, you just have to know that all this money I'm spending and all this effort, I might not actually get what I'm looking for. But you also have to have the right attitude towards it and understand that at the end of the day, it is God who gives power. And if you aim for something, you don't get it, then the time is not right, and yours will come along eventually.
Okay, I have a second question. I don't know if I should go ahead, Lillian.
Please make it brief.
Okay. You answered part of my second question, which is the a female, like the kind of position you contested and all. You've aspired for positions, being a woman, which has inspired a lot of us. And my second question is, most of the times we get to hear that because of the how will I say, poor engagement of females in politics, it actually affects like females out there who aspire for positions. I don't know if there was a point in your aspirations that you got affected by the low turnout or low engagement of other females in politics.
Okay, so I've always actually worked at enhancing young women's political participation. And yes, it's a challenge that I've taken note of, but it's not something that affected me adversely, so to speak, because when it comes to politics and wanting to do things, if I want something, I go after it. I don't think about, oh, I'm a woman, should I be doing this? I don't care what anybody says. I don't care what anybody thinks. If I think I'm qualified for something, I will go after it. And for young women specifically, a lot of the challenge actually lies with our social conditioning. And that's something I've actually devoted many years of my political participation to working on. And it's going to take a while though. Culturally, there are a number of expectations for young women, and political participation really is not one of them. When it comes to what it is, what it is that young women are expected to aspire to. So there's a lot of reorientation that needs to be done, a lot of work that needs to be done on the psyche of the average young person, and even on the psyche of those who raise children. Because if you grow up hearing that a certain thing is not meant for you at a certain time, it's likely to affect how you choose to engage with the political process as an adult.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that, Ma. King Kusan, can you ask your question, please? I'm trying to make it brief. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, everyone. And good evening, Mr. Fiola.
Good evening.
Okay, thank you for the enlightening session. Okay, my question is, while you were speaking about addressing the challenges, you spoke about campaign finance regulations. And I want to be certain that I got that point well. So my question is that, are there these regulations already in place, or you were suggesting that these regulations should be put in place? Thank you.
Okay, so the regulations are already in place. Like the Electoral Act places a limit on expenditure for different offices. If you're running for office, you shouldn't spend more than 70 on House of Reps. But we find a lot of aspirants or candidates going beyond those limits. And as of this moment, I don't think anybody has ever been held to account for doing that. So if the electoral umpire, for instance, were to become more serious about ensuring that campaign financing regulations are not flouted, we might actually have, fair play across board. But for now, nobody has really been held to account for spending more than they're supposed to.
Okay, thank you, ma.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for that, man. So Mr. Helvis, please ask your question. Okay, so the question that Oluwatosin followed.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, please go on.
Okay. Hi, Rinjola. My question is, I think I'll just need something like a personal perspective, because there's this thing, the average youth, we've hammered on it a lot, that the average youth is not necessarily interested in politics, and there's this certain level of we against them. Anybody in this system, politician, is against us, the people and stuff. And we've seen it countless times when a person who has proven himself to be on the side of the people, once they just join politics, there's just this default apathy towards them naturally. So seeing as you've transitioned in this kind of scenario and painting, how do you handle that? That's where because a big part of politics is likability as a person. So how do you navigate around the fact that the people who are supposed to form the nucleus of your rise in politics are now against you by virtue of you joining the system? How do you handle that?
Okay, so most of the passion I receive from other young people is on social media, and it's usually around the choice of party or my political involvement with people they think I'm close to or supporting, and it's mostly on social media. And for me, even when I'm an equal opportunity target. I'm often targeted also by members of my own party, and then also by people who don't belong to my party. So I've just learned to just zero out on the noise and just focus on what I'm doing. And one thing I've realized is that even when people see all sorts of things, when I do my engagements at the grassroots, at home, talking on the media, doing my empowerment programs, engaging party leaders, I know I'm making progress and I know I'm making headway. So if people choose to talk, if I choose to engage, if I feel like a concern expressed is a genuine one, from time to time I find the time to engage, but other times I just really ignore it. And I feel like a lot of people would do to develop. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, but it's a bit faint.
Okay. So I was saying that it's just key to engage as much as you can and to focus on where the work actually is. So hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so most of the bashing I receive is mostly from social media. And at the risk of sounding funny, a lot of those people have no bottom line on my politics at home, where I actually practice my politics. So I think it's very important that as young people who want to join politics, who want to be politically active, we focus on our bottom line. Know what exactly it is you're doing, where you're doing it, and everything else is noise, really. You need to learn to not be bothered by what it is that people say or the kind of attitudes that they display. If it seems like the concern is genuine or if it's just from a place of naivety, you can engage when you have the time to. But if, for instance, you're doing your politics in Nanka in Anambra State and somebody from Lagos is insulting you, that person is not your target audience. Do you understand? So you don't deplete energy engaging, people that you really don't need to engage. So for the most part, block out the noise. If it seems like it's important, then engage. I think that's really just the best way to handle it.
Thank you so much on that. Now, I'll just take some few questions, like one or two. So this is from Shikud Shi, and he said, "What are your thoughts on tokenism, and how can young people take advantage of it to open the door for more young people?"
Okay, so tokenism. I wouldn't really want to use the term tokenism because it connotes something that I don't like that word. But I'm talking about young people now. Say there are opportunities. Take a position like the youth leader or the women leader. Those are positions that are tokenistic in principle, but then it's also a position that can be used to drive a lot of change depending on who occupies it. So I think it's just about also ensuring as young people that we put our best forward and that we work with those people who are in those positions to ensure that they're able to help other young people climb up the ladder. Then opening the door for more young people. It's also very key that as young people, if we get opportunities, it's not fair, but we need to remember that our conduct will be used to appraise other young people. And we should always, conduct ourselves in a manner that will make, the oldies more willing to take more young people on board.
Absolutely right, Ma. And this last one from Tosin, then, which she wanted to ask is, she said,
The mentorship platform, I've seen it. So I started the Progressive Young Women, but then it was taken over by the office of the National Women Leader. So I don't know what's going on with it now. So I wish I could actually have feedback on this, but I don't. But I think what I'll do is probably reach out to the lady in charge and ask her what's Is there any other question?
no, no, Ma. And I would love to say thank you so much. It has really been an enlightening one, like so much to take in. And I guess I might have to go watch the video back on YouTube, and I'll suggest same for everyone, especially those who miss some part of the session. And on behalf of the college, the board, the region, would love to say thank you so much, Ma. Thank you for honoring our invitation and for filling us up with the challenges young people face and how we can actually address or tackle these challenges. And I'd also love to say thank you to the participants who joined in. Thank you so much. And please join in again tomorrow, same time, on another interesting topic. However, before we go, can we please unmute her mic and maybe some claps or just say thank you to our facilitator?
Thank you, Fabiola.
Thank you, ma'am.
So
Thank
much,
you
ma'am.
very much,
Enjoy
ma'am.
your lecture. God bless you.
Thank you, madam. God bless you. That was an awesome teaching. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Unmute. Thank you. Thank you for having
Thank
me.
you.
Have fun. Thank you. Thank you. Good night. Bye-bye. Bye.
Thank you.